Go ahead. You can go ahead, Nusaiba.
Okay. Welcome everyone. Selamat datang. We are on the second webinar of the series, A Time for Social Transformation and Movement Building. So this is organised by the Salt River Heritage Society and Rahasia Mafusa, MPO. So I am representing international relations for the Salt River Heritage Society and the chairperson of Rahasia Mafusa, MPO. So today's webinar, the topic for today is Arts and Cultural Activities as a Tool for Spiritual Consciousness, Social Change and Unifying Humanity. Before we get started, I want to give special thanks to the supportive team that have helped in this process. Yusuf Lauken, Lutfi Omar, who is the technical person behind the scenes today, and Shabadeen Romani, who's going to be your moderator. So our guest speakers are going to talk about the value of arts to celebrate traditions and bring unity between people, bring people together. So part of this, we particularly hope that from these webinars, we can bring together people from Indonesia, Malaysia, South Africa closer, and humanity as a whole. So this webinar, we're going to be exploring the topic of cultural activities and events. So we've got varied perspectives on the board today with a wealth of experience, each contributing to this field for over 25 years each. So they've paved the way as icons in their respected fields, shifting the society's perceptions and giving a way to social change. So this time gives us an opportunity to reflect what the role of arts are for an enrichment for our society, self-expression, self-development, and contribution to the society. There are many forms of art with different intentions and influences. So as you can tell by the title, today's gathering is about those that are bringing about consciousness and awareness, and for those truth seekers out there to elevate humankind in the end, we hope. So through time, we can consider how we can benefit, what are the rewards of our time, and what are our unique talents bestowed on us, which are actually our duty to contribute and share with others. So we're going to be starting with Salehhuddin, and he has worked with various government posts throughout Malaysia in different areas. He is now the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture, Director of Policy and Research Division, and the National Department of Culture and Arts of Malaysia, JKKN is what it's abbreviated as. So he's been in the creative industry for over 30 years. He started out as a professional jazz musician and educator, and then he went into arts administration in the government since 1992. Some of his biggest contributions have been the restructure and reform of the National Symphony Orchestra and the strategic plan for their artistic development program in '93. There's many amazing things that he's done over years, so I can't list them all, but another feature is his influence in the international community, and particularly his project of being part of the creative team of the opening and closing of the 16th Commonwealth Games in Kuala Lumpur in 1998. So he's on a number of international committees, projects and accolades, including the Cultural Awards Scheme in Australia, awarded by the government in 2001. So we're going to start with the foundation, what defines culture in the Malaysian perspective, and share the policies and infrastructures that help support artists and the industry in Malaysia and beyond. So it's going to share his contribution, changing the perception of arts for society and the value of arts as a means of excellence. Some of the things that stand out to me in our conversations over the years, the 9 pillars of disciplines for the betterment of the industry, the national creative policy, which was 200 million ringgit in 2010. So right now I've been witnessing quite a tremendous adaptation that the ministry have been making in still carrying on their events or festivals or making economic streams for the artists. So it's going to be sharing some of those things of how they've adapted during the lockdown in the COVID-19. One of the favourite things that I like to quote from what he's actually said in some of our meetings is our future is to make art. I think that's really beautiful. We shouldn't forget that. Next, we're going to have ZAIN BHIKHA. He's internationally acclaimed artist, and he draws people to spirituality and the importance of self-expression and art as a means for bringing humanity together. So he's also been adapting his art to the pandemic. So hopefully, inshallah, he's going to be sharing some of his tips, his advice, and of course his challenges over the last few weeks that he has been making that shift, and has been seeing him doing amazing work. So he's from Pretoria originally. He lives in Johannesburg. His first album compilation, A Way of Life, are a collection of Islamic songs, mainly in the English language, released in '94, and it was welcomed eagerly by the Muslim community. He's popular throughout the world. Actually heard about him in Indonesia. Many people used to tell me about him there, so he's well respected across the board. Recently came back from a tour with Mufti Menk in Africa, and I know that he toured in the UK towards the end of 2019 last year. One of my favourite artists, Cat Stevens, he has had the blessing to work with and collaborate with. And again, another a quote that I've touched me over the months and inspired me to keep going on with my art form and the work that I do, and it's also inspired a recent poem of mine that I've written during the lockdown. Is a Turkish proverb that Zain shared with me: throw a flower into a ravine and hear it echo an eternity. Next up, we're going to have Madda TAHIR. He's going to be speaking about the holistic spiritual value of the arts and how it's a really effective tool for connecting with the youth. He's going to be speaking about how he chooses artists and why it's important to keep doing this and its benefits to the society and individuals. The work that he does is really meaningful and exceptional, working with organising events in Malaysia and abroad. His speakers range from artists and arts and culture practitioners that are artists, professionals, educators, with a focus on spirituality, awareness and seeking. And occasionally the eccentric artists, which was maybe the category that I fit into. Okay, so he often prioritises on actually bringing out the voices of the marginalised and the disenfranchised youth, because his approach is non-judgmental and accommodating. So the result of that means it attracts people from all walks of life. There's a willingness and a commitment to bridge the social and community issues and the gaps between them for all people via a comparison and best practices by inviting speakers from around the world. Thus, it promotes social and spiritual communities through these events. It lends to their expertise in a wider range of projects. He often gives his expertise across boards to community and different projects in schools, media, charity, and refugees. So as an organizer of Islamic info events like international Islamic fairs. So to summarize, we've got a collective of voices here. in a means to endeavour to rethink the basis of our common destiny from our own specific historical and social context and the resources that we have. So I'm going to pass over to Shahabuddin, and he's going to be mediating, and then we're going to have a Q&A towards the end after each speaker has spoken. And everyone is welcome to post their questions on the Facebook page or on the Zoom chat, and then they'll be fed through to Shahabuddin. So without further ado, Shahabuddin, I'll pass to you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that introduction, Ms. Eba. Done as professionally as you always do. Brilliant. You're a true artist, I must say that. And thank you for convening these really top people, globally speaking, and I appreciate that. And thank you for asking me to mediate. I'm the policeman here. So for today, Mother, I think you have the floor for now. You have 10 minutes, plus minus.
Saleh first, then ZAIN, and then...
Yeah, sorry, Salehhuddin, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Nina. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, my fellow speakers, our technical person, Lucy, and people who's watching this live on my Facebook. My name is Salehhuddin Salleh. I'm from Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur especially, been living here since 1980. Been working with the ministries since 92, as what mentioned by Nina just now. My involvement in the arts and culture for the past 28 years in the governmental section. But before that, I was already in the involvement myself in the entertainment industry as early during my university time. Well, I was, before I go further, let me just recap, do a reverse gear a bit. This is how Malaysian culture is all about. It started referring to the constitution of Federation of Malaya, or Federation of the Malay land, those days they call it. Back in 1957, when we got the independence from British, we are called British colony. So Article 3, if you refer to Federation Constitution of Malaysia or Malaya, Article 3 has mentioned about Islam is the religion for the constitution. And then in Article 152, 153, it stated about the Malay language as the lingua franca. And they call it, and then after that, we changed it to back into Malaysia language or Bahasa Malaysia. And then it changed back to Malay language back. Then now they changed back to Bahasa Malaysia, because if you say Malay language, it's only specific to the ethnics of Malay. But when talking about Malaysia language, Bahasa Malaysia, it goes to everybody who's living in Malaysia or Malaysian citizen, regardless of ethnicity, races, and faiths. So this Federation Constitution is very important. So from that, when we established, and then in 1963, the establishment of Malaysia, the insertion joined by the North Borneo, which is Sabah, and the South Borneo, which is Sarawak and Singapore, to make it into a federation of Malaysia, a form of establishment of Malaysia. But in 1965, Singapore left the organization, and until now we have 14 states. So from that 1963, we changed our name into Malaysia. Before it was Malaya, so Malaysia. And of course, as a new nation, with the natives, with the immigrants who came those days, brought by the British, the Indians and the Chinese for the mining businesses, the Indian for the estates. So imbalances of economic among these ethnics plus the native. So the Chinese control the economic basically because they are very wealthy, they're in the cities, and the Indians are controlling the estates. Rubber, especially Malaysia was the biggest rubber producing and tin producing, and the Malays they are at the kampongs or the villages doing farming and so on. So that's why in Article 153, it mentioned about safeguarding by the rulers, the Agong or the king of Malaysia to safeguard the natives. Quotas given to the natives and the Bumiputra, they call it from the Sabah and the Sarawak, to be given priority. So this is a social contract, a consensus agreement by the leaders those days, which was stipulated in the constitutions. So from that, of course, there are lots of unhappiness. It's very controversial, Article 153. So very sad to say that in 1969, 13th of May, we have a racial riot. So from that, we learn and we want to become one good nation. So that's where the formulation of culture policy. So I have to start up with the history before going to that. So that's in 1970, Malaysia emphasis on assimilation, also the non-Malays into the society. So in 1971, national policy, culture policy has been formulated, whereby three main focus. One is the national culture must be based on the indigenous, the Malay culture. They are the natives. Second, suitable element from other cultures may be accepted as part of the national culture. And number three, Islam is an important component in molding the national culture. So these three are the key things guiding the national culture policy and making the national culture landscape. So it's a statement. It has no enforcement or whatsoever, empowerments whatsoever, but it is a statement and to be shared to all Malaysians. So you just imagine we have already independent for the past 63 years. This policy is still valid. But we have already of course, times has changed. So we are in the process already, actually, we have already come up to a new culture policy which is supposed to be launched by the Prime Minister in April this year, but sorry to say because of COVID-19, so the MCO is here. So we have to hold this and maybe this will be more holistic, more relevant to the current situation. So just telling you that that's how the ecosystem of culture being implemented in Malaysia. So now how to preserve and conserve, how to sustain. So what we have done now so far, we have to follow the guidelines of culture policy. And of course, it has to be complemented and distributed in a way of certain ratios of all. So culture has no boundaries, culture has no limitation in terms of politics, in terms of religion or faith, or even in education as well. But if you refer to the first, the culture policy of number one, that's the priority. That's the priority. You can't question that anymore. So it's related to the national constitution. And of course, culture is something which is in Malaysia is part of our way of life. It's not only arts, and it's arts is only part of culture. Culture has it became a very big role because the way of life, the way of living, customs, even food, even dress that you wear, even the attitude, noble values injected. So these are the things that encompass culture as a big role. Of course, in education, we can't put everything into one, but we injected activities, co-curriculum in school from as young as preschool towards primary school and up to secondary school to colleges and university levels. So it only comes up to a co-curricular program or maybe an elective program in the education system. But and it grow, and because the creative industry has contributed a lot in the GDP of Malaysia. So in 2010, the then current government at that time has allocated amount of 200 million SIG fund for the creative industry, which involve advertising, designing, performance, culture, marketing of the arts, animation, film, and so on. So this were the kickstart of the industry creative in Malaysia. And that's where we put up grants, funded art activities, animation, digital content coming in. Animation is very big thing during that time, and we just hit the correct notes that MDEC, or Malaysian Development Digital Development Corporation, which focusing on digital content, has came up to a very strategic plan, and whereby now lots of Malaysian company going into animation, getting jobs from Disneyland Corporation, from Hollywood, and so on, and a lot of Malaysian animators or even experts in computerization and digital working abroad in the industry, in Hollywood industry, for example. So these are the things. Yeah.
Salehhuddin, can I just ask you?
Yep.
I think you've given the background to the policy formulation, and that's fantastic. I think it's something that we may want to ask you to provide us with maybe a document that lines up the way the cultural policy has been established and how it's been implemented. For now, having established it for over 70 odd years now, how do you see the preservation of this culture and heritage? Has it brought together more tolerance between the various groupings in the area?
Yeah, of course. It is when talking about culture as a whole, involvement of ethnicities, different ethnicity, different races, different faith. Of course, the ratio, of course, has to be whatever it reflects to the federal constitution. Priority given to the natives, and then of course we support the others. And of course, when it comes to program, when it comes to designing activities, we must make sure that everybody involves. Everybody has their cakes, pie that is shared. And so it has to be distributed equally, and also involvement of this must be, of course, as a whole community, as a society. So there will be always a representative within whatever we do.
So
the ecosystem.
Given that there's a substantial number of Chinese people, communities within Malaysia today, and Indians, I understand, how does the policy impact on those minorities? Because essentially they are minorities in Malaysia, not so?
Yeah, of course, we can be, we can't compliment everybody. But the most important thing that what important on our side, governmental side, on culture side especially, when it comes to this kind of activities, this kind of programs, so it has to be involvement of everybody. So even we have to have, when it comes to funds, creating grants, so it has to be everybody. It's open to everybody. There's no, in terms of what we call it, biasness and so on. So it depends to how good is your proposal. So we don't look into what you are coming from, what background you are, but if it's a good thing, we accept it as you are a Malaysian. So these are the things that we are going into the process. It takes some time to shift this within the new generation.
How
But
Salehhuddin, how has this impacted on, how's the COVID and the lockdown? I understand that you have a different term for lockdown. How has the lockdown in South African terms impacted on your work and bringing the different various communities together? Has it helped in the process, or is it causing more problems for you?
okay, of course. This under COVID pandemic is of course everybody affected. Everybody affected, from small businesses up to multi-million businesses as well. So nobody escaped from this. Everybody affected with this current pandemic. So especially in the arts and culture, especially. I was informed by some of the quarters of association that the live performance activities or live performance businesses, they lost about 10 billion ringgit, because of this. And then of course, when the very beginning of MCO, we have we collecting data from our arts NGOs, art practitioners, from amateur to professionals. So we have a big data. We got information from how bad the industry.
Thank you. Okay.
So these are the things that we are talking about. Moving forward, of course, we have to go into a new normal, new norms of approaching the arts and culture. So we start doing digital content, doing into we offer platforms on digital, online programs, encompass all arts.
So then just hold your thought there. We'll discuss that a little bit later on. That's Salehhuddin in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. I would like now to move on to ZAIN, because it's is it Johannesburg or Pretoria, ZAIN?
Johannesburg.
You're originally from Pretoria.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
ZAIN, okay, so maybe just a bit of background, ZAIN, about your work, your collaborations, where it's taken you, what is art about, etc., etc.
Well, thank you very much. Firstly, I feel very, very honored to be part of such a wonderful, distinguished panel, and people from all over the world. You know, subhanAllah, I think as South Africans, as Muslims, we have a great link to Malaysia, Indonesia for our Islamic heritage, and I think something that we often undervalue. I was reading The Life and Times of Tuan Guru recently, a book by Shafiq Morton, and it was unbelievable. Subhanallah, what I think we as Muslim South Africans are really literally living and enjoying the freedoms that were granted to us by these pioneers that came and suffered extreme hardship. And we owe it to pay tribute to them, you know, subhanAllah. So for myself, as a young boy, I grew up in Pretoria, and really art, if there was ever an example of the power of music or the power of art, it's this, because I grew up, I never had any formal musical training. I always loved singing ever since I was a child. And at the time, you know, when I was growing up, there wasn't any music that was, or songs that were influenced by our faith, by Islam, in English. All of the songs were in Arabic or in Urdu. And of course, languages that we, in our generation, don't really understand or speak. So when I started singing way back in 1994, this was, you know, over 25 years ago, it was mostly just because I wanted to express myself. I had this deep desire to sing. I was a very young man. I was going through my own spiritual awakening, and I started writing these simple songs. It wasn't really anything fantastic, but it was the fact that it was different and it was in English that allowed suddenly these little cassettes in those days to travel all around the world, subhanAllah. And I never expected it, or nor did I plan for it. It was more just the way things unfolded. And I think the person who's benefited most from this whole journey that I've been on is myself, because I've had the opportunity to work with amazing people, to travel around the world, to learn so much. And it really is testimony to the medium of art, that art is, as the speaker mentioned before me, can cross cultures, boundaries, nationalities. It can unite the hearts. And often I think our society often undervalues the importance of art, because it's so intangible, because it's so, sometimes it seems so effortless. But if you look at the current trends that are taking place at for the youth, it's always defined by arts and culture. And sometimes it can be negative. So we have to provide something that is positive. We have a responsibility on us. I mean, I remember clearly what the speaker mentioned, that the opening of the Commonwealth Games, Rayhan performed for the first, subhanAllah, on that stage. And watching it in South Africa, a Muslim nasheed group performing one of their signature songs, it really amazed me. And listening to groups like that growing up, and it really helped my own art. So I think it crosses boundaries. Art for me is really putting a piece of your soul, putting a piece of your own thoughts, experiences, life into a piece of a medium, whether it's a song, whether it's a video, whether it's a painting, whether it's dance, whatever it is, putting a piece of yourself into something and showing the world and saying, this is who I am. And that's why it's so important for it to have an identity, because really art is a reflection of who we are inside. And if we take that away, then really we become much less as human beings. So art is so important. I've had the opportunity to work with some amazing people, starting with Yusuf Islam. Many years ago, he invited me to London. I was a youngster in South Africa, not knowing what I was doing, but he somehow asked me to come to London and record his most famous song called A is for Allah, which he wrote when he just embraced Islam. And I'm eternally grateful for that, because it allowed my voice to travel around the world. I've also had the chance to work with Dawood Warnsby. I've had the chance to travel around. I mean, MAHIR and I were speaking the other day about him inviting me to Malaysia and seeing his, his efforts there. His Caravan of Peace, subhanAllah, the band is amazing, and I love them so much because they're doing something with such a great purpose. So I've had a chance to meet people, and that's how I've learned and grown as a human being. It has been interesting. This whole pandemic has affected us. We've been in lockdown now for 6 weeks, I think. And I have done much more than I've ever done before in these 6 weeks. And the reason why is because people are stuck in their homes around the world. And Muslim organizations, charities, educational organizations, even fellow artists like my friend Dawood Warnsby, I was speaking to him. He says that because people are stuck at homes, in their homes, they want to do something for their children, for their classrooms, for myself or him. And so I've been doing a lot more live interactions, a lot more social media activities. I've been doing some different types of programming as well, pushing myself out of my comfort zone. But this is just because there's a great need for people to connect. I mean, that's what defines us as human beings. We need to connect to each other. And through song and through celebration of art is the most beautiful way. And when Ramadan is upon us, it's a very difficult time because we are all in our homes. We're so used to a community effort towards Ramadan, whether it's joint iftars, whether it's the joint salah, tarawih, it's difficult for us. So I think, of course, nothing can replace that, but at least having some interaction digitally does help. So I've been doing a lot more things that I've ever done before, whether it's via Zoom or Instagram Live or Facebook. And I've just been appreciative of people who've reached out to me. This evening, for example, I'm addressing a whole lot of students in Canada, and they have their classroom well, it's their afternoon, it's our evening. Tomorrow, I'm speaking to a group in the UK. So every day I've had programs like this, and I've had to adapt my technology around me. So using, the sound card and a good microphone and connecting my backing vocals into the computer has been challenging because I've had no help. Normally I have an engineer with me. So I've been all by myself. So I've had to learn a lot. So Alhamdulillah, I think as an artist, the main thing that I can say is, if you do something because you enjoy it, you've already won, because you're doing something that you love. And how many people in the world get a chance to do what they love? So do it because of that. Don't ever limit yourself, and don't ever judge yourself by numbers, whether it's your likes or followers. It's all about being true to yourself, putting your message out there, being consistent about what you feel is is true to you and to your beliefs. Be responsible, because I mean, if we have a talent, we don't deserve this talent. Allah has given it to us for free, for nothing. So it's about using this talent to make a difference in the world, which I believe music and arts can be. We can make a difference. I mean, I'm still amazed that even yesterday I was speaking to a brother from Canada who's originally from Bangladesh. And he said one of my songs has changed his life. And I'm sitting in South Africa thinking, no way in my wildest dreams that I imagined that when I wrote that particular song, that I imagined that a person across the other part of the world would impact them. So I think for me, that would be my message. And I'm really grateful to be a part of this, mashallah.
Zain, just for our sake, South Africans, generally speaking, we're not very expressive in terms of arts. Have you found that since you're appearing on the stage, if I may put it that way, there's been a bit of a resurgence in terms of South Africans connecting to art, whether it's vocal art, whether it's visual art? Has there been a bit of a change, do you think, or has it remained static over a period?
No, I think definitely it's a great question, because, you know, when I started, I mean, I grew up in a very conservative community in Lodium in Pretoria. I grew up in a very traditional Islamic home. And if it wasn't for my parents who really thought differently, I mean, as an 18-year-old wanting to make a cassette of Islamic songs in English, it was my dad who said, do it. So I think it has increased. I often feel that people in Joburg and in Durban have embraced it slower. For example, if you look at the Cape Malay culture, the culture of qasidas and nasheed, and has gone back generations, and it has survived, whether it's in the weekly dhikrs or things like that. So I often feel like we in Joburg or Durban never really got the true taste and the beauty of that. I often feel like it's only happening now. But Cape Town, I think, has got a rich heritage. And alhamdulillah, look at the nasheed bands. I mean, you have the national, the nasheed contest once a year. It's a wonderful culture in Cape Town, which I think we in Joburg and Durban should learn from, inshallah.
Just one last question before we get to Mahda. We know that our population, the African population, is largely African-based. Has your work influenced any of those groupings at all?
Without a doubt, yeah. I mean, yesterday we launched a song on YouTube, and it features my good friend Tariq Malinga, who's he embraced Islam at a very young age, but he's a young African Muslim, and he sings mostly in Zulu, and his songs are absolutely beautiful. I know also another group, also in Soweto, a Soweto-based group, and they've been doing a lot of nasheed, again, primarily in indigenous languages. Wonderful. So I think, and that's exactly what we need, because as you know, in African culture, music and singing is a huge part of the culture. Absolutely. And I think that if we can utilize that to portray the message of Islam in a beautiful way, then inshallah we will have achieved something.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you very much, Zain, for your input there. Without further ado, this is becoming a very, very interesting talk, and I'm just afraid that we're going to run short of time. We need 5 hours for this program, I think. We'll go to Mahda immediately. Mahda, you have the stage.
All right. Thank you, Salehhuddin. Sabuddin, sorry, you got Salehhuddin and Sabuddin, I got confused. But thank you again, like Zain, I'm also honored to be here, on the platform, this webinar. People that I hear are much more impressive than I am. I'm a small-time social worker, actually. But I'd like to thank you, Rasia Mafiosa, Salt River Heritage Society, yourself, and also Lutfi and everybody in Cyber, especially for putting so much hard work and effort to make this happen. What I do is actually I my history is I was into like ZAIN, so we met a few years ago and we did an event and we had a good time in our conversation. I started music with my art was rock music, heavy metal music. That's my introduction to the world of art, which is music. And interestingly, I was inspired. Not just in the music and in the musical of the art, but also in the message that those rock bands wants to carry, and they want to pass on. And from there, I realized how powerful art is, especially to the youth. And now, if you're using the language of the youth, then you can really inspire them. Because I see a lot of them. I was in the post-punk movement back in the late 80s, early 90s. So yeah, I know, and as such, that from then on, I realized arts has a very powerful element of inspiring people. You know, and as I get into more practicing my own religion, you know, practicing Islam more, and try to see like how is, you know, how this art that I like can actually be benefit to the society, to the youth. And so my audience until now in like Crescent Collective, my audience is mainly youth, the urban youth, you know, the marginalized youth. So I need to use their language. So I think art it's a very powerful language now for the young people. You know, the generation where young people, I think Salehhuddin will testify to this. You know, a generation where people wants to be engineers, doctors, lawyers, and all this is gone. The young people today, you know, are more exposed to art, and they want to pursue art. And we have a younger parental generation that is actually quite open to their youth pursuing art. And with the digital platform, with the digital media, and you know, and arts has become a very powerful element. People are working. You know, there's a lot more need for videos, sound bites, illustration, graphics. So we have to like basically just accept that this is a very powerful tool, and how we're going to use it. So arts, for me also, for my work, arts have to be beneficial. You know, I work with a lot of artists that, you know, oh, my art is this, but I say like, at the end of the day, I say, how does it benefit me? You know, and I mean, this is depending on what is your purpose of work. For the concert promoter, doesn't matter how good your music is, as long as it sells. You know, ZAIN will testify to this. If it doesn't sell, you know, you can be a brilliant, you know, technically sound is good, you know, you have a good composition, very meaningful, but if it doesn't sell for a concert promoter, it doesn't mean anything to him. You know, but for people like me, you know, I don't look for that. I look for, does it inspire the youth? Are you a good role model? You know, so as such as that, it not necessarily like your art has to be Islamic, you know, quote unquote. It just has that your work is positive, and that you are able to, you as a role model, and your art itself carries that. You know, that it inspire. Now, an artist has like I said, I work with artists, and I'm going to go to the next point after this, where how I choose my artists. But I always tell my artists that you know, like ZAIN says, you know, Allah has given you a talent, you know, to make good music. You know, I myself is actually tone deaf. You know, I'm a tone deaf person. So I mean, like, and you know, like those people who are given that talent by Allah, you know, it's a talent that Allah has given you. And there's a very famous Malaysian actor, producer, director, singer, songwriter. His name is P. Ramlee. You can Google him up. He's very popular, very big. Nobody has surpassed him until today in Malaysia. He was back in the 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s. And he passed in early 70s. And he has a very beautiful quote. He says that if you think that your talent is a gift from Allah, then make the best out of it. So you can make the best out of it, out of monetarily, commercially, or you can make the best out of it of inspiring people. For me, I'm looking for those artists who think that they can make the best out of their art or their music or their work to inspire people, to create social change. So as such, when I choose my artists, for instance, to achieve this objective, I usually have 3 R's. You know, I hold that the artists have to be righteous in terms of the content that they bring, the art that they bring, righteous in themselves, not to me like really righteous person, but they have righteous intention. You can see that this, you can't, you know, you can't fake this. This is they have to be righteous, they have to be real. That's why I say you can't fake this. If you're not real, the youth, they will see that. I see that. You know, I have artists that I bring, you know, that I gave a platform, but then I realized the artist is not real. It doesn't vibe with me, and as it happened, it doesn't vibe with the other youth. It doesn't inspire the youth. Because the artists, you know, a lot of artists try to, you know, some artists may not want to like say, when I say this, but they like to be in the artistic mode. They pretend to be like so deep, but they're actually not. You know, small things kind of like trigger them and shake their world. You know, so they have to be real, and also they have to be relevant. Relevant, I say, like if I have a group of youth, right now that are into hip hop, then I need to find a hip hop artist. You know, if I have a group of youth that are into folk music or into rock music, I have to find a such relevant to the youth, you know, as relevant to my audience. If I'm catering to a event that caters more older generation in Malaysia, then I find an artist that is more popular, you know, that have that Malaysian taste. So it's basically, you know, the relevance is important as well. So that's how I choose my artist. Now, as such, the right artist is going to leave a very long, you know, impact, a sustainable impact on generation. And I would like to, you know, like recently when I had a meeting with ZAIN and Saibah was talking about, recently I watched this movie, which I had in my collection for a long time, but I just watched it. It's called like Searching for Sugar Man. And it's about the story of an American, you know, nobody really knows him in America, but he was huge in South Africa. He released an album and he was huge in South Africa. And he became like very his music was revolutionist. It's actually during the time of when they're fighting apartheid. And it's inspire a lot of revolutionist musicians and bands in South Africa at that time. But in America, in Detroit, nobody knows it. You know, until these two South African from Cape Town who wanted to look for this guy because they heard myth that he killed himself. He committed suicide on stage and all this and whatever. You got to watch the movie. Like, so they went to look for this person and they just realized that in Africa, he's huge. You know, back in those days, he's huge. And he left a very powerful impact when nobody knows him in America. So that's you know, that's how we cross borders. That an artist in America might inspire somebody else somewhere else. You know, so I think that's just an example of how powerful music can be. You know, it can bring down the government.
Mother, just on talking about bringing down government, from a logistic and financial point of view, how do you make it work as a living artist yourself? I mean, is it do you monetize what you do, and do artists survive as a result?
Okay, this is a big challenge. Like for me, for instance, I work on a social platform, so I'm very upfront with my artists. I say, you know, like working with me is not going to make any money. You know, you're not going to like be making money working, because when you do social work, when you inspire people, you're basically giving out something. You know, you're giving away instead of earning it. So a lot of my events, a lot of my concerts, even the one I did with ZAIN, it was all free, but the vibe was really good, and then people just came. It was all free. None of the artists got paid. ZAIN didn't get paid. So if ZAIN didn't get paid, none of the other artists going to get paid because he was the headlining artist. But they all wanted to come, and we had such a good time. And you know, there was one time when I spoke to, because I have this bandwagon that I founded a few years back called Caravan of Praise, where we go out and spread the praises of the Prophet, but in the new language. You know, like if this artist plays folk music, then he can sing it in folk music. If he plays hip hop. It doesn't have to be traditional salawat and all that.
Okay.
So one of the artists was telling me, you know, like we can't keep going on playing for free. So I said, like, you know what? Yeah, when we get a paid job, alhamdulillah, we get a paid job. Sometimes it's a good pay. Sometimes, you know, most of the time you have some token. That's it. And sometimes we even play for free because they wanted the salawat there, but they don't have the budget for it. So I told this artist, you know what? If you look at it as free, and then it's free, it's nothingness. It's just free. Free means nothing. You have free time. It's nothing. But look at it as a sadaqah. Just change the intention. Because me and you, we are social worker. I'm a social worker. You are a struggling artist. We don't have money to give sadaqah. But Allah has given you talent. You have a voice.
Oh, beautiful.
You know, you have talent to play. That is your sadaqah. Your voice and your performance is sadaqah. And if you do that, because Allah says sadaqah doesn't deplete. It only increases. And have faith in that.
Well, Mother, just before we go to Salehhuddin, do you think the bulk of the pre-COVID work that you'd be doing were live events? Post-COVID, there's a strong feeling that much of what we're now doing is going to go online. How do you think that's going to impact on your work?
You know, I think people can't wait to get out now. You know, I mean, I think this COVID thing is temporary. This is not how human beings want to live.
Okay.
But what is interesting that I've realized is even pre-COVID, when we were free out there, we were actually not connecting. We were on our phone most of the time rather than connecting to people. And now this period that we were asked to shut down, we get no connection with the outside world and other people, and we have to go to the phone. But I think the human nature is, no matter how we can connect, which is great, there's benefit in it that we can connect. It's convenient. We can connect, miles away. But Salehhuddin, I like to sit in front of you at the end of the day. You like to sit in front of me. You like to feel my presence, because I'm actually looking at my phone. I'm not looking at you. If I don't have my phone here, I'm not looking at you. At the end of the day, I think post-COVID, I think there is bigger want for people to actually have on-land event. Let's gather, because we know how it felt when we were shut down for months and we can't meet.
All right. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you very much, Father. All right. So we'll just do a quick short round with each participant, and I'll start with Salehhuddin. Can we switch on his mic, please?
Okay, just give me 1 second. There we go. Okay. Okay.
There we go.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, we can.
So what do you want to? What you want me to continue?
I just briefly, the last points that you were making about the progress you people are making in Malaysia in terms of keeping people productive in the field of arts and culture.
Okay. You see, this is like what I continue what Mahada has mentioned. Human nature. Sometimes human beings, when they get pressured, they become more creative. Yeah, because this is what creative works, is to find alternatives. So all this while, we have been very complacent with what we have done for the past by doing normal life, normal performing for the artists, doing live concerts, live stage or recording whatsoever. But you couldn't imagine that one day you'll be confined into a space that you cannot do anything. So this is what we call it the new norms. And Alhamdulillah, actually it's a hikmah Allah give to us to give us another idea of creating a new things for our well-being. So this goes to artists as well. So with this catastrophe, we have to think about, we must be a philanthropy in a way that we change, we shift our normal approach of doing business into a new thing. So meaning that, Alhamdulillah, with the cutting edge technology, with all these internet things, so it helps to move things, very unusually, in a different manner. So meaning that we still can survive. Yeah.
So Salehhuddin, what new things have you put in place to provide an income stream for artists?
Okay.
Are there plans afoot to make a change?
Okay.
Or?
Yeah. So we have to think forward. We have to move forward. We have to think ahead of whatever is happened now. So in our organization, I just had a post-cabinet meeting with Minister this morning. So we are being asked to do a lot of new things approach for the arts and culture especially, and how we can, see how we can help the industry. Okay, for example, as an organization like my department, so we have culture infrastructures. So we have to give some incentive to culture professionals to use our infrastructure, to use our auditorium for free of charge, for example. We have to seek, we have to create a relief fund for the artists, for example. Even though we have that fund, but now we have to think of the new norms to provide more conducive and more effective to all. For example, we used to give fund for NGOs of the arts, but now we have to think about the companies, the art companies. They need to survive as well. So they need to, and maybe not to make big profit, but of course to survive. And also, they are also the implementer or the practitioners of the arts. They help us to do programs for the arts, to sustain the arts growth in our country. So we need to support them as well. Event programs. So from this big event program, we have to start creating big program in order to sustain the arts involvement in the economic sector. So we are so happy that we are so glad that tourism is also in our same ministry. So tourism can play a marketing tool for the arts and culture, art-based program to be marketed to all over the world under their mechanism of tourism. So these are the things that we put in place, and in order, of course, dollar and cents also being counted as well. So Alhamdulillah, now we are thinking differently. So our mindset already changed, and hopefully this become a new thing, and this will be sustained forever. So whatever is now, we have to change. So we have to change a new form, and we still have to move, and it's still profitable.
Thank you very much, Salehhuddin. Can I go to ZAIN? ZAIN, you obviously stuck at home as everyone else is. How have you adapted your craft? Are you writing new material? Are you recording new songs whilst we're under lockdown?
Well, I think what I've done is I've embraced the technology that's available to us, that wherever we are in the world, we can still connect. So I've been doing a lot of collaboration. So my drummer, for example, who's in another part of South Africa, I sent him a track, he sent it back to me, and we merged our videos, and then we do a collaboration that way. I came across a great beatboxer from Indonesia, and I reached out to him, and he was very keen, and we did a collaboration digitally, which was amazing. I did something with my son in the studio as well the other day. So I've adapted from that perspective, and I think just following on what MAHIR said, and also, you know, I think for me personally, what I'd love to see is for the consumers of art and the supporters of art in whatever fields, just to really give the artists support, whatever, whether it's buying or supporting directly from them, you know, not duplicating, you know, if you are inviting an artist, realize that they're putting their art and craft and their passion into something, support them by whether monetary, whatever the case may be. From the artist's perspective, I would say, do what you love, and don't limit yourself to a commercial decision. Like MAHIR said, you know, look at it as a sadaqah. Once I visited Sheikh Ahmed Didat with Yusuf Islam years ago, and he was bedridden at the time, and you know, he passed away shortly after. But next to his bed, there was a frame, and I'll never forget the words it said. It said, "There is no limit to what a man can do if he doesn't care who gets the credit."
Absolutely.
So sometimes if we don't worry about the outcome, we just do our best, and we leave everything else in Allah's hands. If we combine that with a good intention, and we do our best, Allah will give us barakah in our work in ways that we can't even imagine. So that would be my message, inshallah. As Nusayba said right at the beginning, my favorite Turkish saying is, throw a flower down a ravine and hear it echo an eternity. A flower seems so insignificant, like a song or a video, but subhanAllah, the impact it can have on your own life and on the lives of others can echo an eternity, and maybe the good deed that tips our scales on the day that matters most. So that would be the advice I would give, inshallah.
Wonderful. Zain, just in closing, in very, very quickly, you don't have any plans to have a formal structure within which you train others to sing?
Well, you know, we've got ZAIN BHIKHA Studios, which is a waqf, and I've been working a lot with, for example, the school in Cape Town, the Leadership College, which is a very, very, you know, a very, very powerful free schooling project in the heart of Manenberg. So we do, for example, theater projects with them. I've worked with schools up here in Johannesburg as well. So I'm trying to utilize the work of the studio to try to promote artists, especially in disadvantaged backgrounds. So, but inshallah, I mean, when I hear MAHIR's work, I feel very inadequate, because that's the kind of thing that I would love to do. For example, get people together for the sake of Allah, for the sake of a greater cause. And I think using the arts, even what Nina is doing, for example, on these platforms, we need to do a whole lot more work, inshallah.
Jazakallah to you. MAHIR, thank you very much, Zain. MAHIR, just very, very briefly, how do you see yourself going forward under the current conditions, and what do you see happening post-COVID?
Yeah, like I mentioned, I mean, a COVID time, like, for me during this lockdown, there's nothing much I can do. It's such a short change to adapt to. I do event on land, and for me to transfer and get, you know, a show or seminar online, I didn't have the time to do that. And I think we're getting out of it in Malaysia. They've already relaxed the rule of control. And like I say, post-COVID, I think I mean, I do see challenges in terms of how the impact on the economy. As such, you see, art and social work will be the last money spent on. I think there's not a lot of money left with my funders or even CSR money, corporation, even government grants. There's a lot been spent. So that's a challenge to be able to get grants to do social events, social programs. But definitely, I think moving forward after post-COVID, I think there is probably more people wants to rather than go online, people wants to really go on land and not take it for granted anymore the time that we have on land. Because like I say, online, like a concert, you can always listen to a YouTube concert video, but it's nothing like being in the stadium. It's nothing like being in the stadium to watch a football match. You can watch it live on TV, no problem. But that atmosphere that's what events are all about. It brings people together, and people have presence. You can sit with somebody who doesn't say anything, and you can feel their vibe, whether it's good or not. So people wants to that's what I think we have to do. We need together, because at the end of the day, on Yaumul Qiyamah, we'll be gathered. It won't be online. So human nature, we will be gathered. So we should get used to the gathering. Even the things that are obligatory on us, like salat now, we can't gather. And people are getting impacted on it, and they can't wait to go out. In Malaysia, there's a concern now: will we make it for Eid? Will everything be fine with Eid so we can meet each other? Well, people don't want to go online. So I think post-COVID, I think there is a more need for human beings to realize that, hey, don't take this thing for granted. And when we do after post-COVID meet, we put our phone aside when we meet people. Because we have enough of this 2 months using our phone to talk to people. And engaging our phone. So I think people it would be a big realization, one thing, post-COVID.
All right.
That we need to feel the presence of people right in front of us, rather than, so inshallah, the next time we do it, either you guys come here or we go to Cape Town.
Inshallah.
That was my final comment. I think we're trying to connect the two land masses between Malaysia and South Africa. Is there a possibility of working together going forward?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, definitely, we have Salehhuddin here who can, and we have ZAIN there, I mean, we are very, like I said, we are, Salehhuddin mentioned, we are very creative people. We find alternative. And I think, there's definitely ways that, actually there's a big thing that we share, the Nusantara area, or the Malay archipelago, the Nusantara and Cape Malay, South Africa. We share. I think it's about time we really do something structured and foundational and significant to revive, this culture. I think there's a lot of Malaysians also who wants to know, we want to know more about Cape Malays. I mean, these are our people.
There you go.
And it's about time we reconnect.
Thank you. I think we lost Salehhuddin for a short while there, but he's back. And besides ZAIN and Mahda, we also have Nusaiba here. She's becoming a bit of a national treasure in South Africa.
Let me just unmute her.
Okay.
Nusaiba.
Sorry, I lost my bird flew through. So
Yeah.
it got
We lost
sorry,
it.
I missed something.
Right. So I think in closing, I now thank you very much for your contribution, gentlemen and ladies. I think it's been brilliant. And it's again something that we can explore further going forward. In closing, I thought it's appropriate that Nusaiba says a few things.
Well, I'm so happy that we got these connections. Of course, I'm very much like to share my whatever experiences I've gone through and impart knowledge to others. And I will communicate with Nina, and whatever that I can help the society in whatever way, I'll do it. I'll do it.
We'll definitely come back to you.
Yeah, and my when I do something, when I present something, when when I do presentation or PowerPoint, or even when I do a talk whatsoever, I always end up with a quote. So I like to share the quote. There's one beautiful quote which I attended once in a seminar somewhere in Baku in 2008, 2009. I lost the year. So he stated like this: mission with vision, mission M with vision is a dream. But if vision without mission is a nightmare. So you get me?
Yeah.
So mission with vision is a dream, but if mission without vision is a nightmare. So meaning you have to focus and you have to go into a direction. And the last, I use this also. So some of my talks is a quote by Plato. Music is a common law. It gives souls to the universe.
Here we go. Thank you very much. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Nusaiba, you have the floor. And Mike, please.
Okay. I think we can talk, of course, so much longer on this subject. I think we should do more webinars on this. I mean, there's so many.
She's muted.
Okay, let me just unmute her quick. Okay, I'm unmuting her.
Yes, so there's so many amazing things that the speakers are doing, and I think we should do follow-up webinars, of course.
Yeah.
And then if I just reflect on how I came up with the name Rahasia Mahfusa of my MPO. Rahasia, for those that don't know out there, it means secret in Indonesian. So I remember the first time I learned what that word was. It was the first day of Ramadan in 2011, and I got lost trying to find a location. I ended up in the middle of, it felt like the middle of nowhere, and I didn't find my destination, and an Indonesian family invited me into their house, and all of the cousins and the grandma and all of the family started coming out, and they were asking me lots of questions, and one of them was, what is your secret to having such great skin? And I just, you know, when I found out that word, it's just such a beautiful word. It sounds like a flower to me, and you know, I started expressing myself, and I just feel that with Rahasia, what are our secrets that we keep to ourselves and we don't share, and also what are our secret potentials which haven't been tapped into? Even that we don't know about ourselves, often there's skills and talents and things that we think that we can't do. And so that's why I've chosen that part of the name Rahasia Mahfusa, and I think that each one of the panel have kind of touched upon that today. Don't limit yourself, and keep exploring yourself and making genuine connections with the people in your community, and reaching out further afield in a global scale. I'd like to thank everybody again, and also remind what Mahfusa means, because that also links to what people are talking about, which is beauty, perfection, grace, and sheer excellence. I want to motivate everyone to keep doing the great work that you're doing, and that all of the viewers keep following the webinars, and your feedback is always welcome, and you can be more involved in the projects that we're doing in the future, and keep elevating the work that we're all contributing towards our societies. Thank you, everyone. And in 2 weeks, we'll be doing our next webinar, and the theme will be around education.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nusaiba, for organizing this. And I think Lutfi has been brilliant as the sound and video engineer in the background. So thank you to him. And from my side, thank you, ZAIN. Thank you, Mahda, and to Salehhuddin, and to all those who had clocked in. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum, and good afternoon and evening and morning.
Happy fasting, happy Ramadan, blessed Ramadan.
Assalamu alaikum.